On November 28, 2012, journalists covered the escalation of the Syrian civil war, a conflict between President Bashar al-Assad and rebels that the government had labeled as terrorists.
For over a year, Syria ripped apart by clashes. The media gripped in an info war just as intense.
The oppressors and the oppressed.
In a frenzy to prove a point, not answering questions as simple as who, what, when, and why.
You're going to country for 4 or 5 days. What's the story? What are you seeing? So I think journalists have become another kind of animal altogether. The media industry it seems more about entertainment.
On November 29, 2012, journalists reported nothing.
We believe these images came out via satellite communications that are an alternative to the country's internet network. And we do know that the U.S. and the British government here in Istanbul are helping supply opposition activists with satellite phones and other satellite equipment that could have gotten these images out, but really an unprecedented situation that we have not seen in Syria.
BBC correspondent spoke with an analyst about the possibility of literally shutting down the internet. When asked if it would be difficult to do so, the analyst said it can be either really easy or really difficult to shut down the entire internet in a country.
It depends entirely on the level of centralization of the telecommunications infrastructure. In the case of Syria, it's very centralized. There is essentially one company that controls the infrastructure.
For an entire day, Syria was left without a digital footprint, likely an effort to insulate the ongoing civil war from outside media coverage and outside government awareness. Instead, the blackout only brought Syria into the spotlight.
The Syrian government is presented as evil and the opposition noble. But who and how varied they are is left out.
You sort of take the path of least resistance, and that often leads to distorting news and information. The public doesn't really get any context or background. That's what's scary.
Despite media bias against the Syrian government, the overwhelming response to the blackout wasn't to blame the government without collecting facts, but rather to aid Syrian civilians in need. At the highest level, the U.S. government intervened by providing civilians with non-lethal equipment and communication tools. One step below, Google provided its Speak-to-Tweet app, allowing citizens to connect with the rest of the world. And finally, people all across the world voiced their support for an uncensored Syria through viral Twitter campaigns, some providing resources such as dial-up numbers. As a result of the non-violent direct action and quickness of these efforts, the blackout only lasted for a single day. And even more notably, none of the intervention aggravated the Syrian civil war. From China to Cuba, government censorship is strictly enforced in many other parts of the world as well. Yet if we can learn one thing from the Syrian blackout, it's that peacemakers are important at every level, from person to company to governing body. The takeaway is that when these parties combine their power and resources into a single joint cause, they create a wave of action and awareness that's nearly unstoppable in the face of adversity and injustice. Together, their lights shine brighter.